Welcome to Successfully Ambiguous. I'm Christine Brooks-Cappadocia.
Being indispensable is about bringing solutions and about thinking about what's next and being proactive, going beyond. And, great agencies do that. When I work with any of my clients, I'm always trying to really put myself in their position, solve both their current needs, but really help them understand, what's next, what could be bigger than what they see today, and how can I help them be more sustainable as a business to grow long-term results, not just short-term. And I think that's a really important part as well about, you know, thinking about things and being very proactive about it.
You run an agency and you've been on the client side and you've been an instructor. There's so much changing, right? When you talk about what's next, job descriptions are literally changing around us with AI. How might we as employers help or managers help our direct reports develop these skills to become indispensable? I think we have an obligation to those that report to us to help them grow.
That's a really good question. That's a hard one. I think stepping back and analyzing situations just like you do in marketing before jumping in and trying to solve something, it's stepping back and really understanding the environment, understanding all the different aspects that are involved, the different stakeholders, and then really looking at, broader than just the task at hand, but think about the greater potential. Think about what are you actually trying to do or to solve, and then think about that more holistically. And I think that helps prepare people for not just, doing stuff, but for becoming better problem solvers, for thinking about things in a broader context, and then grabbing the resources, whether it be people or agency partners or, you know, AI applications that can then help achieve that in the most efficient way.
One of the reasons I love to talk to marketers is that you do think about the larger context all the time. You think about the problem to be solved, the how do we manage the project and resources to get there, and then look for that value that is greater than each individual contribution. It's a fascinating way of looking at the world. And then of
Yeah.
course the creativity, which is what everybody thinks about marketers.
Yeah, I think, marketing, as I've always been taught marketing and practiced marketing, is about that fine balance between uh, art and science. And it's, like you said, it's that creativity that we so often jump and we say, marketers are creative, marketers do advertising and they do promotions. But there's really this real scientific side to marketing that a lot of people aren't aware of, and it's the back end, it's the hard work that makes the other stuff not only look easy but be way more successful. And that's the research, that's the analyzing the environment, understanding the problem at hand, the true root problem, and developing the insight that feeds all of that amazing communication, content management, the promotion or the advertising itself, that makes it so much more effective. And so yeah, I totally agree, there's this art and science balance of marketing, and it's always been, what's really excited and interested me and attracted me to marketing.
Well, and the scientific method, right? You really do develop a hypothesis and then test and then adapt to gather data. There's been so many announcements of transitions in we've had an employment base or an employer base that's been reluctant to hire because there's uncertainty. I think we're finally getting to the point where employers are starting to realize that uncertainty is the new normal. It's not that we're going to get through this period of uncertainty and then we will hire again. Employees are struggling with, what comes next because we cannot see as far as we used to, and career paths are increasingly nonlinear. What's your advice for people in this environment? How do we navigate this as well as we can?
I think it is a tough time, and it's definitely an evolving time. And, you're right. We don't know ultimately how this will settle or if this will ever settle. And so my advice to students is to do do the work that you enjoy, do the work that you want to do, and as opposed to talking about things and always being able to say, well, yeah, I learned this, or I understand that. Do it. There's so many different tools out there and applications at our fingertips. The majority of them are free, and you can get out there and you can start creating your content. You can start developing a product if you want, showcasing your creative skills, helping organizations that you may really love or be excited by, and just go out there and communicate with them, offer them free advice, offer them, an opportunity to do short project work. Find charities that you're interested in. It's something that I'm very passionate about, and spend my free time helping out different charities that are meaningful to me. And it gives you a great opportunity to do the work, do the things that you love, gain the experience that way. It makes you better at, working with others. It helps you with your networking. It gives you great experience that you can then talk about should you then be in a place where you're talking to somebody about actual work or an actual opportunity. And the, worst case is you're gaining that experience. The best case is maybe what you're working on takes off, and then before you know it, all of a sudden you have created your own, either a side hustle or maybe even your full-time gig that gives you the freedom and allows you to do something that you really love and enjoy.
Well, and I love that you've mentioned charities. That seems to be a growing theme in this. There are a couple of themes that coming out of this podcast, but I'm finding that successful people think beyond themselves and give back. And I don't know if you know this, I started out in the not-for-profit world, and I always saw in the annual giving, so marketing, but for donations. I always saw charitable contributions and my own charitable contributions, almost as something, for lack of a better way to put it, selfish. I got more out of the gift and
Yeah.
the volunteerism than it would ever be possible to give back. And it's that feeling of, self-worth, knowing you've made a difference, just the positivity and the framing around, if you're having a bad day, there's nothing like going out and doing something good for someone else, right? It just makes you feel better about yourself.
Yeah, I think you've touched on the universal insight about, helping others is as much about the feeling it gives you as it is about the benefit that it gives to others. And I think that, it allows you to practice the things that you enjoy, to give back to those that really need and benefit from your capabilities. And there's no downside from it. And how could it not be something that you want to engage in and make part of your life when you can help others, make others feel good, and at the same time, like you said, benefit yourself?
And it gives you agency to shape the world you'd like to live in, which is huge.
Yeah, exactly. Like
Huge.
when you feel like you are too small or that you can't make a difference, you can, and there's lots that you can do to get out there and do good and make a change and make a difference, even if it's a small difference. In small steps, it's still something that is moving towards the greater good, and it's still something that we can all have an impact with.
And nothing makes you more indispensable than shaping the world for good. Andrew, I'm
Absolutely.
just so grateful that you've come on to have this conversation with me. I knew you would be the right person to talk about becoming indispensable with.
I've loved it. It's been so great. I'm so glad that you invited me today, and the time just flew by. I could talk with you for hours and hours and hours. So thank you so much for having me.
Thank you for joining me for this episode of Successfully Ambiguous. Be sure and subscribe to us on YouTube and listen to us on Apple and Spotify. If you've got career questions, be sure to email me at successfullyambiguous@yorku.ca. Don't forget, when opportunity knocks, Be ready to answer.